Alright, so here is a look at this PBC10 by RJM on this flatboard. Alright, so looking over it, it's real simple, real straightforward. We go into the Polytune for tuning. We go out of the Goodwood Audio long line series for his XLR or 1/4 inch outs. There's ground phase summing and a pad lift on the side over here. It makes it really convenient to mess with everything he needs. On the controller, we're going into loop 1 into the sunset, which we're locking the loop always on, and then we're going to loop 2 and we're locking the loop always on so they can actually utilize each side independently by just toggling them on. The reason for that is because otherwise you would have to go and physically turn on the loop every single time, and it just gets really confusing. So this is like the simplest way we could possibly do it while maintaining all the tones. Alright, so as you can see, loop 3 and 4 are nothing. Then we go into an insert loop, which is the Dunlop DVP. And then we're going back into the board, and we're hitting the wet effects, which loop 7 is the Mobius, loop 8 is the Timeline, loop 9 is a Big Sky, and Iridium is actually in 10. So there's two reasons I did this. So one is the Iridium is post everything, so he can plug in headphones right here and actually just play if he wants to play, with headphones, not have to plug all of his stuff in. It's really convenient to have that option. If the Iridium was pre this, when he would plug the headphones in, he wouldn't have any of the wet effects. So it just makes things a lot easier to actually mess with in the long run. Two, the second reason I did this is because if he decides to do like an ampless setup or anything, not ampless, like he wants to use amps, he could get the Goodwood Audio receive box from them and plug into amps and run XLRs up to 300 feet. But the reason I put it in this loop, so instead of like him having to go and turn this, like if you turn this off and change the patch, it's going to revert back to on because of the presets, because they're sending it PC messages, which are preset change messages, and CC, which are control change messages. The easiest way he'll be able to do that is he'll actually be able to go in to his editor on his controller and actually just turn that loop off. It'll be one of those things that he'll easily, like this, he can just click this one time and it's set for independent, so it's not going to come on or off like for a preset like these are. These will change on certain presets, like this is all blank. If we go to 3, these might be on or something, something else might just be on. But in order for him to go into amps, I basically just set up to where he can click that off, doesn't mess with any of his presets, keeps it in the chain, and allows him to really still get all the tones he wants. Alright, so page 1 is really simple. We got presets page, so we have loop preset 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. We have bank up and down, which are plain, makes perfect sense. We bank up and down. Those are utilized for more like the preset songs and set list tab for everything that I have on YouTube here. I'll link it and you guys can watch if you need to learn how to build a preset song or set list. It's really simple. Mute is a mute. It's a secondary tuner. He can tune from here, or he can just roll down his volume, or he can just step on the tuner. Because it is a first 10, he'll have to physically step on the tuner, just so we can, because we're not utilizing the tuner out, because we'll get tone loss out of the DVP. Just because we're splitting the signal, so running it straight in as his first in is the best. The master mute and the switches tab does two things. I've customized it to do banking and MIDI. So these first 3 right up here, they're white. These are actually buffers. So we got buffer 1, buffer 2, and buffer 3. So buffer 1 is input, middle, and output. So if he decides he wants them, he can add them. If he doesn't, he can turn them off. Those are all presetable too. This is the dry switch. Here is our sunset, so we can actually scroll through different sunset presets if he wants. You can see the sunset is changing. Same with compression. He can change the different, he'll have to start, numbering. Number 1 is this, number 2 is this, because it can get really confusing. Obviously that can be turned off if it's not going to be utilized, but it's there. And then we got the Iridium. So the Iridium will actually, you can hear it. I'll go back down the one you can hear it. You can hear it coming on and off. So it is changing the type of preset. That can be all set to where it's only a couple different amps if he's changing amps. If he's not changing any amps, then we can turn that off. It's really simple. We'll talk about that in the editor. Then we got blue for Mobius. So tapping goes up. As you can see, holding goes down. That same rule of thumb is for these guys as well. All the MIDI programming, tapping goes up, holding goes down. Then we got the aqua color, which is the big sky. Tapping goes up, holding goes down. I want to mention 2 things. We do have both MIDI in and out set up. This is actually set up so we can utilize these 3 in Nixie with a single USB cable while we're going through the conduit to go to these guys. So you see yellow is going to be the timeline. Obviously, RJM doesn't have a gray color. It just doesn't make sense. So I've always kind of just coined doing yellow with the timeline for whatever reason. I don't know. It's just what I always do. Hit that to go back home, and that's it. We'll talk over how to build a preset next, and then we'll play through it. Alright, so playing through the board and trying to build presets is really simple. I have a couple steps to easily remember. A lot of this kind of just becomes muscle memory over doing it from time to time and just kind of, remembering. So I always say 1, pick a preset. So we're going to pick a preset, so we're going to pick 1. 2, we want to select the loops. So we want to hit loops. We want to turn on what loops we want. So maybe, we want the timeline on. And you can actually see it says big sky. So I want the big sky and the timeline on. So those are the 2 that I want on. And, I may add compressor, okay? So compressor has turned on, as you can see. Boost and all those. They're showing on because we were scrolling through presets. As soon as we were to change, like if all these are on, as soon as we change preset, because the CC command has not told it to turn on, they'll revert off. So we'll go back, turn those on, and I want compressor on. As you can see, those are the LEDs that are coming on. That's the sounds we want. We can hold this. Now it says stored, and now we can hit loops again to go back to the home page. And if you like the sounds that you're getting from the timeline and stuff, that's great. You can easily, adjust this because it's already on a PC number to change what you want and save it on the unit. If not, and you want a certain type of reverb, we're gonna hit switches. We're gonna change reverb. So we might bank up to, I don't know. We'll find like a swelly reverb. Say we'll do Nimbus. Nimbus is my favorite swelly reverb. But the timeline, we may want something else. Sure, we'll do the 96. So that's the sound that we want. So now we can hold, save again. We're in the switches. We'll hold save again. It says stored. And then that's good to go. So if we change presets, everything changes. Lights go off. These have changed what they are. We hit 1 again. Changes. Everything changes. Lights come on. We're all set. Same rule of thumb happens with the Iridium. You may want a different sound that is in here. You can just pick a different sound. Some people, I myself, do not change the Iridium sounds. I don't like switching between amps because as a front of house person, I've done before, I've had someone that would change their profiles like that, and it was different amps all the time. And it just gets really inconsistent for the mix sometimes because then they're having to battle gain levels and EQ and stuff. I always say to stick to 1 amp. But that's just me. Every person is different. Every musician is different, and we all like our stuff done different ways. But that's it. That's how to build a preset. Now let's play through and let you guys hear everything. Alright, so here is a look at the RJM PBC10 setup that we just talked about on the editor, and how we can utilize the editor for cool couple things that make things just so much easier to work around. Alright, so let's look over at the editor. First thing we're going to want to do is when we get the editor, which is going to be this Mastermind editor, you want to make sure it's the newest one, so it's 4.9.1 by rjmmusic.com. Under their downloads, there's a firmware and there is an editor. Pick the platform that you need, if it's Mac or PC, and download it. Make sure it's 4.9.1 because that is what this PBC10 is. Once you've opened it up, there's a thing you need to do before you can actually physically start connecting to the controller is plugging in the USB cable. So we have this USB cable that comes with the controller. You want to plug that in. Once that's plugged in, you're going to go up here to transfer. You're going to hit connected device. It's going to say connected to 4.9.1. This actually says 4.8, so we will also update. To update, it's really simple, and we'll do that in a few minutes. So what we'll do is we're going to go back up, and we're going to read settings from device. So we don't want to save any of this right now. We're going to hit don't save. We're going to let this go, and then we will be in basically the controller. It's taking all of that information, it's throwing everything over so you can actually do it from the controller. It doesn't sync in real time, so it's not like an HX Stomp is or anything, or a Quad Cortex, but you can still do editing program. That's why it's convenient to have a file saved on your computer. If like you're traveling and you need to edit some stuff but can't get to your board, you can do it this way. Alright, so looking at the actual editor, we can see all of our global stuff. We can see all of our devices. We can see all the names, where everything is. You can see where the location is. If you want to change where things are, you can drag and change them around. You can change the color of them, whatever you want to do. It's super simple. This is where the Iridium is, which we are going to set as an independent, like we talked about. So we're going to set loop 10 as being independent to where you can decide if it's on or off, which makes things easier, and it doesn't send a preset updates or anything. It'll just always be on or off depending on your needs. But this is where we go into and we'll see preset songs and set lists. We can actually build presets, which I have a video that you can watch that really dives deep into everything that has to do with that. So coming up here, you see preset song set list, MIDI. If you want a MIDI clock, you can enable MIDI clock right here. So it says off right now. You would put it to transmit, and that's where you can actually up here change the tempo. It's really convenient. This is also where the PC messages come through. So when you scroll through the messages, you can see it's changing. It's basically just lining up one on one. If you don't want the numbers to change like that, like say you don't want it to do that and you'd rather just manually do it yourself, you can go over here to devices. So I'm going to do that with the Iridium. I'm going to uncheck send PCs. So now when you look at this, the Iridium is gone. So the Iridium will only react and change if you actually physically bank up or down. So like if I go to the switch page and I bank up 5 presets and hold save on the Iridium, then when you switch between those presets, it'll know the change. But if you say preset 2 go to 5, but then you go to or you go from preset 2 to preset 3, it'll stay on that number 5 because it doesn't know to go back to anything else. I do that personally with my reverbs and delays because I don't like having it all up here. So I actually turn that PC message off for pretty much everything. I actually limit how many reverbs and delays I use. I do a delay for every patch. So in Nixie, it makes things a little easier. But reverb, I'll have like 3 or 4, and then I can set up quick switches to where I'll scroll through just like 3 or 4 at a time, which makes things a lot more convenient. But for today, we're not going to do that. But this is what it looks like. If you want to change the LED, double click. You can change the color. You can change the on color, like me on the presets page. I typically do this. I make these all red. And then the one that is active is green. The great thing about this is that instead of it all being black, if say on one song you have 4 presets, and then another song you have 6 presets, and then another song you have, I don't know, you have like, 2 presets. This will correlate with what you have, so it may just be showing to these 2. It might show 4 of these, it might show all of these. And then global preset is actually where like I would put like a swell or something. A global will be like your favorite patch that you like. So that's where you'll go in and actually change like the type of sounds. So like if you're like, I always go to a swell patch. We put a swell patch there. And then when you actually put like here, if you were to label this swell, we'll go back over here. It's not going to show it, but when you would click on global patch, it will say swell, which is really cool. That's it. To export everything, you want to, when you're going to read settings from device, you're going to read settings from device. Any changes you make on the editor that you want to reflect on the controller, you write changes to the device. So we just did that for the Iridium. So we are going to write those changes, is sending it over. We're going to send it over to the computer and let it, let the PBC see what needs to be doing. This is another great place to where you actually can, and I just heard some clicking, so some things changed. Once that's done, that's where you can actually go up to File and Export. That's a great thing about the PBC10 and the PBC6. All the RJM series, you can do this. You can actually export all of your settings, and you can drop it in an email and send it to me if you need something tweaked or you want some extra programming that you're not really familiar with, and you want some help with. So that's a cool thing to do. I always say save. So I'm going to save this as PBC10, and then you can put the date or whatever you want. So I'll save that as my RJM file. So that will be there, that'll be saved, so you can always open that up if you're not near your board. Obviously, if you make changes on your settings and stuff, it's not going to correlate until you read settings. Another great thing is the board is equipped for Nixie, which is really convenient. So with the same USB cable, you can go up here to Nixie. It's going to open up, and it's automatically going to start looking for your pedals. So I utilize Nixie. I don't leave the controller. Like if I leave it plugged in, you're going to get a little bit of noise out of it. It's not a whole lot, but it's enough to be annoying. But you can still utilize the board and everything. It's just reading all the presets. It's gathering everything up. You can actually turn things on and off, which is really cool. I don't obviously want to do that right now. So you can double click, bring things up. You can move things around. I like to come up here to the bar, and I like to look at device details. The great thing about device details is depending on what device you click on, you can see the presets. So you can see all the reverbs and delays. You can change some settings and write those settings. You can save settings. Like I have a collection of my types of reverbs and delays and stuff. So I can actually, like if I clicked on delay, I could drop this delay one over and send by writing the change, and it'll say delay on here. So actually physically on this board it says delay, which is really cool. So yeah, that's it. That's the great thing about Nixie is as soon as you connect it, it pulls it up. You can rename stuff. So you can double click and rename this, intro if you wanted. So hit intro. Now it says intro. Really simple. So yeah, that's it. Have a good one.